So I wanted to give y'all a live update on what's going on with the Diddy trial. There is a lot happening, and you might have seen the headlines, but a verdict was entered for the Diddy trial. So there was a verdict entered into the judge today for the Diddy trial. So if you don't know, the jury has been deliberating for the past almost 2 days, for the past 2 days after they got instructions from the judge yesterday. There was a little bit of back and forth between the jurors asking questions about certain parts of the crimes that he was charged with. And then today, the jury was continuing their deliberation, and then it was announced that a verdict was entered to the judge. But here's what you need to know. So, a verdict was entered on counts 2 through 5. So, they had a verdict of guilty or not guilty for count 2, which is sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion as it pertains to Cassie Ventura. They have a verdict of guilty or not guilty on count 3, which is transportation to engage in prostitution, which pertains to Cassie Ventura and commercial sex workers. Count 4, sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion as it pertains to Jane, the Diddy's ex who testified under the pseudonym. And then count 5, which is transportation to engage in prostitution as it pertains to victim 2, Jane, and commercial sex workers. Now, the reason that it's not done and we don't know whether the plea of guilty or not guilty was entered is because the jury was hung on count 1, which is racketeering conspiracy. So if you don't know, they're trying to figure out if he's guilty or not guilty on all those charges. Now, here's the thing. People are speculating that if they found him guilty on on at least 2 of the other counts, then it likely would have meant that he was guilty for racketeering and conspiracy. We don't know though. The other thing is that the jury asked to enter their verdict for all of the other counts and to be a hung jury or to hang on count 1, which is racketeering conspiracy. The other thing that's important to note is that it's not like one juror versus 11 jurors. They're saying that there are jurors on both ends. So there are people who are saying that he's guilty and people who are not guilty. Now, when the jury came out and asked if they could be a hung jury, the judge said no, that they needed to continue to deliberate. It's also important to note that both the defense team, which is Diddy's team, and the prosecution team also asked for them to continue to deliberate and for them not to be hung on the racketeering conspiracy charge. We don't know why. We don't have any other information. Now, the judge had to make a decision because the jurors were still, when they came back after deliberating, they told the judge again that they couldn't come to a unanimous decision. And so what the prosecution team asked for was for them to continue to deliberate and have to come in on the 2nd and the 3rd. Now, here's why people are saying that that's important. Because they're saying the prosecution team is asking for them to come back in on the 3rd to try to force them to make a decision. Because the jury and the judge wants this to be wrapped up by the 4th of July. So they're saying that the prosecution team is basically trying to make the jurors uncomfortable so that they have to be forced into a decision. And the likelihood is that they're assuming that the decision would be guilty. Now, the judge did decide to have some sort of conversation with all parties, and what he decided on was that they will continue deliberation tomorrow. So they only have to deliberate on the 1 count, which is the first count, which is racketeering conspiracy. And if the reason that people are saying that they don't know if he's found guilty, if he's going to be found guilty, is because the requirement for the racketeering conspiracy is that he committed 2 crimes within a 10-year time span. If he was found guilty on at least 2 of the other counts, those are technically illegal activities. Now, the other thing that comes into play is that they don't know if those activities have happened within a 10-year span. So they could find him guilty of the other counts, but if they did not all fall within a 10-year span, then that could be a problem. So, for example, he started dating Cassie in 2008. If they find him guilty of something that happened in 2008 and he started dating Jane in 2024, there's more than a 10-year gap in that. So it could just be that they found him guilty on more than one charge. But the requirement for racketeering and racketeering conspiracy is that they have to happen within 10 years, within the 10-year span. So we really don't know, and they don't tell us. And the judge refused to accept initially not a full verdict. He said that they need to go back and deliberate again. And since they couldn't come to a unanimous decision this time and currently, the judge is saying that they have to return back to court tomorrow. Now, I'm assuming that if they return tomorrow, they're probably over it. The jury has been sitting here for like 2 months now, going through this court case. I will also say that it's important to note that earlier on today, there's an ambulance going by my house. I live in New York City. It's loud. It is important to note that earlier today, they asked for transcripts from Cassie's testimony. So they asked for the transcripts while they were deliberating from Cassie's testimony. So I don't know if they weren't sure about whether or not they thought he was guilty of the crimes with Jane, but I think, or with Cassie, but I think most people are speculating that there probably isn't as many people who are going to find him guilty for the crimes against Jane, specifically because of all of the information that was provided to them. But it sounds like they got to come back. They're going to have to come back tomorrow. So a verdict was technically entered. The verdict was half entered because they couldn't make a decision on count one, which is racketeering and racketeering conspiracy. So the judge has told them that they have to end deliberation for today and they will return tomorrow. So again, they've come up with a verdict for count 2 through 5. Count 2 being sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion, which pertains to Cassie. Count 3, which is transportation to engage in prostitution, which pertains to Cassie and commercial sex workers. Count 4, which is sex trafficking by force, fraud, or coercion for Jane. And then transportation to engage in prostitution as it pertains to Jane and commercial sex workers. The only one that they have not come up with a verdict for, or they've not unanimously agreed on a verdict for, is count 1, which is racketeering conspiracy. So they're going to have to come back to deliberate tomorrow, though I think all the excitement came from the courtroom. Everyone thought that we were going to hear the verdict today, but I'm feeling certain that at least by tomorrow, there will be a verdict in front of us. So for right now, we are not 1,000% sure whether he's guilty or not guilty on all of them. The only thing that we're sure on is that they have come up with a verdict for counts 2 through 5. So that's y'all update on the Diddy trial. And I'm going to keep y'all updated. Stay locked in between tomorrow and today. I'm going to do my best to give y'all live updates.